Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to this session today, where we're going to be talking about all the business relief measures that are available for SMEs here in South Africa. And I'm very happy to have all of you here with us. I can see we've got quite a number of people who are online. So thank you very, very much for that. This was very short notice. We only sent out the notice yesterday. We've been working on it for a long time. And we just realized the pace at which things are changing is just ridiculous, actually. And, to keep up to date really is taking a lot of time and a lot of effort. And we just realized that we're never going to have it perfect and have all the answers at a particular point in time. So, yeah, what we're doing is we just decided yesterday, let's just take the plunge and share the information that we've got with Ida specifically, and I'll introduce you to my two guests just now. But Ida in particular has put in a lot of work, and so has Sunette, understanding everything from a labor point of view. And, with weeks of late nights, very little sleep, trying to put everything out onto paper and to combine everything that needs to come together, it's been really, really hard. It's been a lot of hard work, so well done to both of them for what they've done and what they've put together. And yet, we still don't have every single answer that there is. So, from that point, let me introduce you. Let me bring them onto the screen as well. So I've got with me, I've got Ida, and also please bear with us because we're sitting all over the place at the moment. So I'm obviously at home. Ida's on the farm with her family, so she's not in a city at the moment. And then also Sunette. I think Sunette is around, but Sunette, her camera is giving some problems. So we only have a beautiful picture of her. But ladies from my side, welcome. Ida, can you quickly just introduce yourself and just a brief background on who you are?
Good morning, everyone. So I'm a registered SAPA accountant, professional accountant with almost 14 years of experience. I started my own accounting practice about a year and a bit ago, and we're fast and on the run. I've always been in the industry, working as somebody's in-house accountant, but now I finally decided to take the plunge and just do it all myself and see how many people we can help to understand accounting and everything that goes with it a little and make it a little easier for everybody.
Great stuff. Welcome, Ida, and thank you. And again, before we get started, I want to commend you for all the work that you've put in. I think you've got a very solid understanding of how things, sort of fit together and what the options are, etc. So thank you. I'm very happy to have you here. Ida's also, we partners in this accounting practice, but I play more of a marketing role than anything else. Ida's the one that gets stuck into the detail there. So, happy to have you here. Then Sunette Brits. Sunette is the director and owner of Legal Sense. As I said in the invite, they focus, or a big part of their business is labor law. And we thought it would be a great idea to have Sunette too, because there's a lot of questions. A lot of the questions we find comes from that background. So Sunette, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Francois, and thank you for the opportunity. Yes, as a founder of Legal Sense, and I think as an owner of a small business as well, I'm absolutely passionate, and so is my staff, about making legal services affordable and accessible to SMEs throughout the country. And if there's ever been a time in our lifetime to actually back SMEs and to assist them like never before, it's now. We are there for our customers and anybody else that runs a business, and we're just trying to, during this time and no matter when anyway, to make things as accessible and to give them as much guidance and legal guidance as to how to run their businesses and how to actually get them through this crisis that's facing all of us at the moment. So thank you for the opportunity, and I hope I can contribute something today.
I'm pretty convinced that you're going to add a lot of value, and just sort of to position the whole session is that what we're doing is we're trying to put things in plain language. So we don't want to get technical, and also because we're doing this via YouTube, we would love you to ask your questions in the chat. So if I can ask that you primarily focus in the chat. If you've said hi and all of that, that's very cool. But if you can, please just ask questions in the chat, particularly. So please reserve that for questions, so it's easier for me to at the end go and look at those questions and then ask the panel as well to answer your questions specifically. Alrighty, so from that point, also after this, you'll be able to go to the site. You can just go to www.francois.toy.co.za/CV19 for COVID-19, and you can connect there with us. So everything we're going to go through today, you'll be able to access more information and some offers from the different people. I know Sunette is giving you an opportunity for half an hour consultation. From that, I think it's half an hour. It's an hour. I can't remember, Sunette. But it's anyway, she's giving you free time to just ask her questions and consult with her. And then there's also some other information that I'll make available. And then also Renata from Noble Prosperity. She's also part of what we do. So I'm going to share some more information about what she does as well. So you'll also be able to connect with her if you need help in that regard. But without any further ado, I want to get into the questions. I've got quite a lot of things that I want to cover with both of you, Ida and Sunette. So Ida, I want to start off with you, and just sort of the relief measures are obviously aimed at SMEs. And I mean, how are SMEs defined? I see the word SME and SMMEs and so forth, but who are these SMEs and that these measures are aimed at?
Okay, so in the terminology, they refer to a SMME as a small, medium, and micro enterprise. So the moment you see in the relief measures where they only refer to a SME, single M, then they have excluded micro enterprises, because those are your more informal sector. There is a whole safety net being developed for the micro enterprises. If you want to know where you fall, there's two metrics that they classify you on, and it's based on what industry your business is in. So the two metrics that they classify you on is, one, your turnover, which is separated per industry. There's a whole big schedule that you can go download from the government's website. It's called the Amended Schedule of Small Enterprises per definition, and it's under the National Small Enterprise Act. Then the second thing is your number of employees, and this is only based on full-time permanent employees. So if you are a micro business, you will have a maximum of 10 employees. If you are a small business, you have between 10 and 50 employees. And if you are a medium business, you have a maximum of 250 employees. So those are your two metrics that you have to work between to determine where you fall when you apply for these relief measures.
Okay, so that's I mean, those are very clear-cut guidelines. It seems to me. I mean, and what are the focus of these measures that's being? I mean, what is the idea? What is government trying to achieve through making these? And it's not only government. Sorry, it's also obviously other entities also making measures available, and we'll talk about that briefly. But what is the purpose behind it?
Any SME contributes to the function and the economy of a country. So the idea is to ensure that these SMEs don't just now fall away, close, and they no longer exist. Because above and beyond anything, these SMEs also employ people. So their main focus is to ensure the economy is stable after COVID-19, employees retain their jobs, and that there are, how can I say, that businesses haven't incurred too much debt at a too high a price that they won't be able to function in 12 months. So they're also looking at the longer period rather than just the short period, we have to survive this year, but in a year, in 2 years. So the government has also put out a lot of things that they are putting out to the public and say, can you supply this? Can you do this after COVID-19? So you really have to keep your eyes and ears on the ground to see the chance and maybe make something for yourself and build something stronger for your business rather than just focusing on, we have to survive now.
Yeah, because I mean that it's a natural thing to do that, to say, well, the problems are now, so how do I just get through this? But we need to start thinking about that longer term. I fully agree with you. Okay, so there's a few sort of aspects that we need to consider when it gets to all of this, and I want to sort of break it down to what's happening and what's available during the lockdown, what's going to happen after the lockdown. So I'm going to start there. And then we will also, I also just want to touch on, self-isolation versus, being quarantined or being sick, etc. So how those different things. So I'm going to structure all of the things as we go through in that manner. So hopefully for the audience, that makes a lot more sense and it's easier to follow then in that regard. So I want to start with what are the situation now during lockdown. So we are in lockdown. It's been extended until the end of April. We don't know if it'll be extended further, but even if that is, whatever is, I want to look at what's happening now during lockdown. And Sunette, I want to start with you. And I just want to ask, I think something that a lot of employers are asking, like, if we can't work, if we're not classified as essential services, or what we do cannot be done from home, what will then be the case? Do I still have to pay my employees?
Francois, if I had a rand for every time we got that question asked in the last four weeks, I would have been very rich. But anyway, there's a general rule in terms of labor law that says no work, no pay. Now, I'm going to try and explain it to you just in simple terms. In a contract of employment between an employee and an employer, an employee has the ability to tender his or her services to an employer, and in return, an employer pays that employee for his or her services. So that's the essential two components of a contract of employment. Now, what this lockdown has actually done now, it's taken away that ability, first of all, of the employee to tender his or her services. We're not allowed to go to work. We're not allowed to do anything at the moment. We have to stay at home. So technically, the employee is not allowed to tender his or her services, and the employer is now relieved of his or her contractual obligation to pay a salary to that employee, which is a huge conundrum. So technically, for every employee that sits at home, an employer is not obliged to actually pay salaries, and that's a big problem for us. So that's the basics of the rule, and that's obviously where TERS came in, or where government recognized that there's a huge gap at the moment in terms of earnings. Like Ida said previously, at the moment, job preservation and the stability of the economy is, as much as we can, is the utmost priority, and that's how our TERS came to be.
Yeah, so you're mentioning TERS now, and it's a word that, well, it's not actually a word; it's an abbreviation or a acronym, but what is TERS exactly? What is that all about? And if I understand correctly, it also works together with UIF. So what is the interplay between those?
Okay, I'm going to first of all, like you say, it's an acronym, and it stands for Temporary Employee Relief Scheme. The latest directive was issued last week on the 8th of April, and the scheme was actually set up, they say, as a means to actually address the reduction of work following the temporary closure of a business or its operations, be it total or impartial. What that means is you might have a business, it's got two components. It has a manufacturing component and an admin component. Admin girls can still work, they can work from home, but the guys that actually manufactures whatever it is they manufacture cannot work at the moment. So TERS is there to provide assistance during this temporary layoff period as a result of the lockdown. And should an employer, as a result of COVID-19, not be able to operate, so like you say, they're not essential services, and they have to close its operations, again in part or completely, for a period of 3 or lesser months, then all employees will qualify for COVID-19 benefits. That means that no work, no pay rule is now basically substituted by TERS for this specific period of lockdown.
Okay, but it must be directly related to COVID. Is that
Absolutely.
That must be the reason why you're not being able to operate?
Correct. What we've seen as well a lot is that I think a lot of companies, the economy hasn't been great and hasn't treated us very well lately in any event. So we've seen a lot of employers that's taking this situation now as basically an opportunity to get rid of problem children. And they're just making people redundant left, right, and center. And they try to utilize this COVID-19 situation as a method of actually dismissing people, which is not the right way to do things. So it has to be this TERS, or this temporary employee relief scheme, is only for the benefit of employers and businesses that's directly affected by COVID-19.
Okay, which would make sense, obviously.
Obviously.
So then I want to jump over to Ida. I mean, how does one actually apply for TERS? What is the process to apply?
The process to apply is a very long and technical process, but in short, you send an email to covid19ters@labour.gov.za. In that email, you include a letter stating that you as a business has now ceased operations for the next 3 months. You have ceased completely, whatever you have done with your business, and they will send an automatic response with a guide and a lot of forms that they send specific, very, very specific instructions for completing them, because the idea is when they receive these forms back, they just need to dump it into the system, and the system needs to automatically calculate what needs to be paid. While UIF is working on that, you have a few other steps that you have to follow and ensure that you are in the process of setting up a separate bank account and notifying employees. And then only once all of those things are done, you will receive your first payment. And you have to redo all of these steps every single month.
Okay, so it's a monthly application then. Is that what it boils down to?
It's a monthly application. Your first application for your first payment is very, very technical, but thereafter you just update the things, send the proof that you've paid the previous month, and then resend all the information again, and then they will get paid again. But it's very important to, when you apply for the second payment, send the proof that you have distributed the first payment to the employees. Otherwise, you will no longer qualify to receive the benefit.
Yeah, because you have to prove that you've used the money for what it was intended for.
Exactly okay. That.
So then I guess a question that everybody wants an answer to is then, how is this, call it then, benefit calculated? How do you calculate what you will get in terms of TERS?
So it works on a sliding scale. A lot of people have asked, how does this sliding scale work? We have no clarity on that. They have promised yesterday, they've said it will come up on the UIF website. There will be a calculator. So if you put in your salary, it will calculate what you're going to earn. But the basic thing is, you can receive in normal UIF procedures, you can receive a maximum of 17,712 Rand a month. Via TERS, you can receive between 38% and 60% thereof. So if you're on the maximum UIF contribution package of 148.72 a month, you can get 60% of 17,700. If you are on the lower end, you can get a maximum of 38%. Then if your wage is below the national minimum wage for your industry again, then you will get a basic of 3,500 Rand per employee.
Okay, so you're referring to the national minimum wage. What is that?
So the national minimum wage is determined by the government. It says per sector, this is what employees should be paid per hour. Then there is amendments to that. If you form part of a sector where there is a bargaining council, where there is a SETA that you have to apply to, or any one of those, they would have negotiated a higher national minimum wage, and you won't be able to pay your employees if they are below that, because you form part of that sector. So you have to ensure that you know in which sector your business falls and what national minimum wage applies to that sector. Those minimum wage documents can be found on the same gov.za website under the Government Gazette releases. You can go look them up there. It's a big schedule. It's about 72 pages.
Sure. Okay. So different sectors, as you say, and different sort of industries may have different minimum
Yes.
National minimum wages. Okay, cool. Then, Sunette, I want to get back to you and ask, where does this start or when, and then when does it end?
Francois, from what we can see, this has already started. It was implemented, like I said. I think the first directive came out with regard to TERS on the 26th, the day of the actual lockdown when it started. And then it was slightly refined because nobody really knew what to do. And that was refined, and the directive was issued last week on the 8th of April. The fund is made available 50 billion rand at the moment. And they say this, or TERS has obviously started already. You can say effectively 26th of April, March, and it will continue for now up until the 25th of June this year. When this directive was issued, obviously that was before the extension of the lockdown was announced last week, Thursday. So that date, I think, will be extended as well, because the initial directive made provision for the initial lockdown period. But I do think TERS, or the benefit of TERS, was to actually assist small businesses for a period of 3 months. And that therefore I think it will actually be just moved out as this lockdown gets extended. Hopefully it won't get extended again, but as far as, well, we can see now from the stats, hopefully not. But let's see what happens. But I think initial date was 25th of June. So you can apply up until that day. You can just correct me if I'm wrong, for TERS. But I think that date will move out to a later date.
Yeah, I just want to quickly then, Ida, can you, if you only apply, let's say in June, can you backdate that application?
You can backdate your application if you, as the employer, have paid your employees their salaries in the first month. You can send what you have paid and TERS will refund you. But if you have done that, you need to prove that each and every employee has received their money. You're going to have to download the proof of payment, the bankroll, the payroll schedule to prove you as a company have paid them, and you're just going to refund yourself out of TERS for what you've already out of pocket for.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Then, Sunette, I mean, there's another thing that is happening in practice, and I'm not sure if this can or can't be done. I think the other night when you were on Renata's webinar, you sort of alluded to companies that closed down, or she did, I can't remember, but that companies that traditionally closed down during December, for example, etc. But now during this lockdown, can employers actually force their employees to take their annual leave?
Francois, yes, they can. And nothing prevents a business from actually asking or requesting the employees to take leave now instead of actually not getting paid. Remember, annual leave is normally paid. It's a remunerated pay or remunerated leave. And Section 20 of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act says annual leave can be taken, first of all, in accordance with an agreement between an employer and employee, or if there is no agreement, at the time determined by the employer in accordance with the section. So employers can fall back on the subsection B, saying, well, you know what, this is for me opportune time to take leave for everybody now. This, unfortunately, we don't have a choice. Everybody takes leave. I have a few problems with that, and I'll tell you why. My suggestion will be to all employers that has got absolutely no other alternative to enter into written agreements with each and every employee if they wish to actually go down this route of annual leave, and even accrued annual leave. I know accrued leave is not very desirable, so it is a good idea if an employee is willing to make use of this opportunity to actually lessen the accrued leave, and it's also a less of a burden on the balance sheet of the business eventually. But make sure it's in writing, because employees can turn around in December when COVID-19 is just a bad memory and we've forgotten about it, and insist on their leave if you haven't had a written agreement with them that you've entered into in April this year. So make sure you have all your ducks in a row. If you're not sure how to approach this, contact me, contact Legal Sense. We can help you to draft the necessary agreements with your employees. You will just have to prove that there was some form of agreement that this is how you're going to approach this period of lockdown. And we've been talking about it the other day. Sometimes just a signed leave form, first of all, completed by the employee, signed by the employer with a side note that says that they have decided to forego terms for that specific employee and to rather substitute it with annual or accrued leave, and that both parties sign with it, should be sufficient proof. But I'm not a big fan of this forced leave thing, especially in industries where there's a forced shutdown in December as well, because what's going to happen then with these clients? So, yeah, it's an option, but it's not the most desirable, to be honest.
Yeah, I must say, and I use the word force on purpose, because obviously, if the law gives you that power to say, well, if you don't agree to it, I can still enforce this in terms of that paragraph B. But I mean, that is not the ideal thing to do from the way you build your culture, the way your team dynamics work, or any of those kind of things. If you want long-term commitment and things, I don't think forcing employees into anything is going to stand you in good stead in the long term. In fact, it may just hurt the business in the long run. So getting that agreement and having that conversation and convincing them rather to actually take this route would be the better option.
I completely agree with you there.
Cool. Then just another thing around April. So now obviously we locked down in April, and April is packed with public holidays, right? Not that we would know that. I think it's the first time in a long time that most people were at home during Easter weekend. But, should employees be paid for these public holidays then? Does this form part of their remuneration, or don't you have to pay them for these public holidays? What's the situation?
Francois, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act says very specifically, if an employee would have been paid normally for that public holiday, then during this lockdown period, yes, they still need to be paid for it. The fact that one day just morphs into the other for us at the moment, you don't know which day of the week it is irrelevant. You would know Ida works with payroll as well. Public holidays or paid holidays, if that is in terms of your agreement with your employee. If it is outside your agreement with your employee and you wouldn't have been paid in terms of your agreement, again, written agreement is the key word here, or the key term here, then so be it. Then you don't pay them for a public holiday. But the fact that they're sitting at home and it is a public holiday doesn't mean that they don't get paid or shouldn't get paid for their public holiday. So, awesome. Yes, they do get paid on public holidays.
All right, cool. All right, Ida, so back to you. I want to know, we've mentioned a couple of times that, you need to be compliant if you want to apply for anything. So meaning that, that can be from an accounting perspective, but primarily from a tax perspective and a UIF labor perspective, we have to be compliant. So what does this mean in terms of just saying, you must be compliant before you can apply?
So from the guidance that we've received so far, there's a few certain things that they look at. They definitely look at your CIPC annual return submissions. Are they up to date? Have you declared correctly? They look at your SAST tax compliance, where they look at, do you have an outstanding amount of debt? Do you have outstanding returns? Do you have anything that is owed to SAST for the taxes that you are registered for and that you are applicable to your business? Then they also look at UIF. Are you compliant there? Do you have a letter of good standing for UIF? Has everything been submitted? Are you registered? And then they also look, what I've heard is for workman's compensation, has your levies been paid? Do you have a letter of good standing for workman's compensation? So those are the four main things that you have to look at. Then obviously, depending on the sector of your SME, there's certain things that you have to comply with, bargaining council payments and those things. They might also, especially if you're working with a grant that you receive from government, that you will have to ensure you are compliant on, or at least have made an arrangement if you are not compliant and you are owing some money.
Okay, awesome. And what if I'm not compliant? Have I missed the boat? Can I still get compliant? Is there any clarity on that?
Okay, so for UIF, the UIF commissioner actually stated that as long as your employer is registered, you can, as an employee, go and claim. UIF will then take it up with the employer if there is money owed. For SARS, there's a whole section in the Tax Administration Act regarding tax compliance there. It comes down to, at the moment where you submit a return that is applicable for the relief measure, the pay-as-you-earn deferral or the provisional tax deferral, you have to be compliant. If you're not compliant, you can try, if you just have outstanding returns and not outstanding monies, you can try and submit those returns before you submit the returns that come in for deferral. You can try and pay everything that is owed. If all of that is done, then you are compliant, then you should be able to receive your deferrals and stuff from SARS. One thing that I must tell you, if you have debt with SARS and you do not have a debt arrangement with SARS, it takes 21 working days before you have that arrangement in place. So if you are not compliant with SARS, you are owing them money, either if it's income tax, pay as you earn, or VAT. You need to get arranging debt management with them so that you can then apply and hopefully receive the deferrals. But they're also looking at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. So just on that point quickly, before I go back to Sunette, you're talking about these deferrals, and we haven't really spoken about that yet, but there's also, so everything we've been talking about now is in terms of, your UIF and TERS and those kind of things, but there's also this thing that you can defer 20% of your pay as you earn, your monthly pay as you earn. So your EMP 201 that you need to complete and submit, where you pay over the pay as you earn that you withheld from employees to SARS. SARS now allows you to hold back 20% of that. Is that a 20% discount, or
Yes.
does it still need to be paid in the future? And what is the process?
It's just a deferral. You still have to pay it to SARS, and you're only liable to pay it as from August 2020. So when you submit that August pay as you earn, for instance, on the 7th of September, you will add 20%. And just on the pay as you earn deferral, it does not include STL and UIF. So your STL and UIF contribution that you declare on your EMP 201, you have to pay in full. It's only the pay as you earn liability that you get 20% deferred for.
Okay, yeah, that's important. So, but I want to understand this 100%. So if you've got, so I can now, for the May payment, which is for April, and then so on and so forth. So for the next 3 months, I can defer 20%. But then if I need to start paying now, you said I need to add 20% to my payroll in September. Do they look at the total rand amount that you deferred and then spread that over the remaining tax year, or do you then have 3 months to make it up, or do you need to make a full payment of what you've deferred?
You have 6 months to make that deferral up. So if you have deferred over the 3 months, say 120,000 rand, you will have to pay 20,000 rand extra every single month.
Makes sense. Okay, awesome. All right, cool beans. So then, so this is everything. Well, not everything, but this is a lot of the stuff that we need to consider now during lockdown. And now I want to move more towards like the after lockdown. So what's going to happen? And I've maybe already alluded now to the deferral thing, what's going to happen. But Sunette, I mean, what if I have no work for my employees? So I temporarily sent them home. They were temporarily actually, let's say, we use the word retrenched, but they temporarily did not work because it wasn't feasible. You got support from TERS and all of these options that you've got. And now, after 3 months, there is no work for them. You can't take them back, or you can't pay them, or any of those situations. What will happen then?
Francois, I think that's going to be a scenario that a lot of our SMEs are going to face after this. It's an unfortunate consequence of what's happening now, but it's something we don't really have control over. And even though employers are encouraged to look beyond the lockdown period now, And like you say, you need to look at it with a view of retaining skills and good labor relations with your staff. If the business is, going to resume at a later stage, it may not be directly after the lockdown, but at some stage, or if it's going to continue its business but at a smaller scale, you need to start thinking of how you're going to approach these things. The first thing that obviously comes up is retrenchment. That's the first thing people think about and business owners think about. But I would really urge them to consider a few alternatives before they get to retrenchment. In terms of Section 189 of the Labour Relations Act, retrenchment is a dismissal due to operational requirements. Now, we all know our operational requirements and operational landscape as SMEs are definitely going to be completely different after we come out of this lockdown. So yes, there are grounds for retrenchments, but Section 189 also said that you have to actually exhaust all other avenues before you go down the retrenchment route. So for me, I think, you know what? I think the main aim here for everybody now is to support the economy, and the two ways of doing is to keep our businesses afloat, and second of all, to preserve as many jobs and skills as we can, even if it's at a reduced rate. So my first option for clients would be to try and negotiate short term with employees. So instead of letting them go completely, keep them in employment short term without, it goes without saying, but obviously comes with a reduction in salary, but at least that person still has a job. And to me, that's the most important thing. It could also be a temporary arrangement. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing. It's just to get the economy going again and to actually get past this first drag. I think that's going to happen after we come out of lockdown. Then obviously there can be another option, again, forced leave, which I'm not a fan of, but if that's the only thing you can do, but it's going to cost an employer money, and for annual leave is paid leave. So you can just as well have the people there because you're going to pay them nonetheless. You can just as well use their skills. So I wouldn't really go for that. And then it's obviously temporary layoffs. So that is as opposed to retrenchments where it's just for a shorter while that you lay off people. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I cannot think that TERS would actually come to a grinding halt after the lockdown or even in 3 months' time from now. Because I think a lot of small businesses are going to need extra assistance from government just to get through this year at least, to get their businesses up and running again and just to try and get back to a sense of normal. So, but whatever option you decide as an employer to go for after the lockdown, they must just keep in mind that you cannot change an employee's terms and conditions of employment unilaterally. So you can't let the people walk in there on the 4th of May, if the lockdown ends now at the end of April, and tell this one, oh, by the way, you're retrenched and I've reduced your working hours, and by the way, just come back in 3 months' time and you can have a job again. Everything needs to happen in accordance with the prescriptions of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and the Labour Relations Act. COVID-19 is not now overruling or superseding any labour procedural fairness rules in place. And I can tell you now, I think the CCMA is going to clamp down on employers that are trying to use COVID or this lockdown as an excuse to get rid of problem children. So whatever you do, no matter what alternative you decide to exercise, just keep in mind there's something like procedural fairness. If you're not sure how to handle a certain situation or what contracts or what procedures and negotiations will be applicable within your specific business, contact me. We can help you just in the right direction at least. The last thing you want now as a business owner is to have labor issues with your staff. Like you say, Francois, you need to maintain good labor relations with your staff, and it's about the culture and the ethos. And I think everybody has a moral duty to look after one another and to make sure that everybody actually just gets through this in one piece. So, you know what? Um, Contact us. We can help you to do this the right way. The last thing you want is to get a CCMA referral or a letter from a bargaining council because you haven't followed your procedure. So
Yeah, so I
that's
think
my advice.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when it gets to labor, it's the one thing that I don't dabble in. So they've definitely they like phone 083 Sunette. I'm just kidding, but get in contact with Sunette. She's the person to talk to in terms of that. Then I think another thing is now, so everybody's now jumping in, donating money, and everybody's, well, not everybody, but people are receiving money, from that point of view. And is there any tax implications that we need to consider? So is the person that's going to receive these grants and donations and money and loans, are there any tax implications for them?
Okay, so all of these relief measures that have come to life because of the Disaster Management Act being called in has an additional addendum to it all. This addendum is how do you call it? It's in terms of the Tax Administration Act. It's in terms of SARS Relations Acts and notices. So what they have said and what they have proposed, that if you have contributed to a disaster relief fund that is specifically aimed at COVID-19 between the period 1 April and 31 July, you will be exempt from income tax. They are seeing these relief funds as non-profit organizations. You will receive a Section 18 certificate, and these things will be non-taxable. So that is if you contribute. If you have received a donation, they also see this as not taxable, and they are limiting the exemption of the donations to only 10% of your taxable income for a year. So you are only allowed to deduct 10% of whatever donation, 10% of your taxable income equal to your donation from your tax calculation. So there's some relief there with all this money flowing and being granted and being gifted and being donated, and then all donations tax on anything that has been given is zero. It's also exempt, so there's no further income tax implication there. The only thing is, if you are an employee and you've received money from TERS or any other payment from any other grant or thing that your employer has given, then they won't have time to calculate the pay as you earn, work it out, ensure that tax compliant. SARS is seeing that income in the hand of the employer as in the hand of the employee as the employee's responsibility to report in their personal income tax return and to pay whatever tax is due based on what they have received.
Yeah, because ultimately it still remains a salary, it's still remuneration. So it would, and it means that, okay, so that makes 100% sense.
So if
All right,
you have donated or received from, you are tax exempt, no tax there. But if you are the employer at the bottom of the scale, that is seen as your salary, and it will be normal income tax for you.
Employees, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we've covered the during the lockdown, the after the lockdown, and then there's one other aspect that I said earlier. I just want to touch on, Sunette. Is this the whole thing about, what if I now decide to self-isolate? So it's a decision as far as I understand, or maybe I'm advised to self-isolate, but I'm not being quarantined. I'm not being told to. It's still sort of my choice if I get it, if I understand it correctly. So how is self-isolation correctly? What does it mean? How is it defined correctly?
Francois, as a business owner and an employer, if I hear self-isolation, I just want to run away, because I think a lot of people or employees see this as an ideal opportunity to stay at home and to watch Netflix or do whatever it is that they're doing. And that's missing the point completely. Self-isolation is a precautionary measure. And I've read up on this, so I'm looking for a simple explanation. And a definition I saw that's probably the simplest is to keep the healthy people away from the sick people. That's what it means. But if you're healthy and you want to keep away from the sick people, it means that you have to be in your house. However, in the case of COVID, self-isolation can only happen by means of a written agreement between you and your employer. So you can't just one day decide this is now what you're going to do and you just stay at home for 3 weeks. In my previous webinar I did with you last week, I told you about a big company in Sandton who just after the first COVID-19 cases were reported in South Africa, I think there were only 3 at that stage. The company called everybody in, and they're quite big on the employment, wellness, and all sorts of things. So they told the employees that they will be entitled to 5 days paid self-isolation leave. And lo and behold, the next day, virtually 80%, 90% of the whole company was at home. And that's before this thing actually started to actually get some momentum here. So I think self-isolation is definitely something that's open for abuse, and that's why I think it is very, very important to have that agreement with your employee. And you will actually get an illness benefit from the UIF on condition that there is an agreement between you and your employer. If you don't have an agreement in place, which I wouldn't recommend if I'm an employee for that matter, then it will be subject to your normal, your normal criteria for sick leave. So you'll have to produce a medical certificate. So the same rules will apply where if you are ill for 2 days or longer, or for consecutive 2 days, or whatever the case might be, then you have to produce a medical certificate. Otherwise, it's unpaid leave. Quarantine or quarantine, whatever you want to call it, is you keep somebody who might have been exposed to COVID away from others. That's the difference. So yes, it's not only keeping healthy and sick people away from it. There's a real possibility that you may have been exposed to the actual virus. And also, for a period of 14 days, you can actually get an illness benefit from the UIF. But you also have to prove to the UIF that the parties have agreed to this as special leave. Obviously, as an employer, and in terms of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, you have a responsibility not only towards that employee who has probably been exposed, but to your other employees to provide a safe working environment. And therefore, quarantine is actually a very, it's compulsory. You don't have a choice. You have to send them home. However, there's a medical certificate required if that quarantine period extends beyond 14 days. Okay. So you can understand why, because obviously, if it goes beyond 14 days, that's what they say the incubation period of this thing is. What are you still doing at home? So there needs to be some form of documentary proof that you are now entitled to your sick leave. And then I want to go back to sick leave itself, because nobody really knows how to apply these things. And I'm not sure whether we've actually touched on this yet, but all of these things that's happening now in labor law, with all these benefits, whatever grants, whatever assistance is given by a government, still has to be tested in real life. And you know what? This is developing. We are learning as we go along. So every day things change. Every day new information comes to the fore. And people just need to keep it in mind that this is things, it's constantly changing for us. But in terms of normal sick leave, if an employee is absent and they can prove that they actually have contracted the virus, normal sick leave will apply. And as you know, you have 30 days over a period of 3 years. So that should be pretty sufficient to cover a person who has actually contracted the virus and can prove that. But yeah, if I hear self-isolation, my hair stand on end because people abuse that. But I do think the fact that the written agreement is now part of what the UIF illness benefit is requiring for you to qualify for that, I think that will eradicate a lot of that chance taking that's happening at the moment.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you, Sunette. So what we've done is, well, I say we, Ida, has put together a lot of different, well, first of all, what she's done is she's gone to all these millions of websites with all of these different, decentralized pieces of information. And she's sort of started to put everything together into something that would make sense and that would be easier to read, as well as what are all the requirements that are needed for that. And what we're going to do is we're giving away with our compliments, just sort of the document that summarizes all of the relief measures that are available from a relief measure perspective, as well as from a tax perspective. So all of it is there. You've got all the websites where you can go and apply. Everything is there in that document so that you can get for free. Then also what Ida has done is she's put together packs for each and every single one of those. So if you're able to look at it and see which ones you may qualify for and which ones would be most beneficial to your situation, then you can look at different packs for that specifically. And that we're selling that because we've put all the information together. It's there. You don't have to worry about where things come from. And also what we're doing is, as things are changing, because yesterday, so I was speaking to Ida last night, and again, things have been changing, and like I can't hear what she's saying because she's typing frantically to update these things. So from that point of view, if you've purchased a pack, as we update them, we will just send you the latest one. So if you want to connect with us in terms of that, obviously, if you go to the address at the bottom of the screen, that just says francois.co.za/CV19. It'll take you to a form. You can put in your email address again. You can choose which of the aspects. So we've got the relief measures is for that document. Then the HR legal stuff is obviously to connect with Sunette. And then you'll receive emails from us to say that, like, Sunette is giving you a specific amount of time for consultation, that you can speak to her and ask her questions. The same from Renata, Renata deals more on business optimization. That's her speciality. She's run big businesses and built businesses from scratch. So she really specializes on getting things efficient and effective. And I think in a time like this, we really see the inefficiencies and things in our businesses. So Renata can also help with that a lot. So if you want to contact her or connect with her, I know she's also giving away some time to chat to you. So you can do that there as well. And then she's also got a program that she offers to help business owners, with their people and money management stuff in the business. So all of that, you just tick whatever you're interested in. It'll go through. You're going to receive an email from Ida, and that email will say you need to please confirm that you actually want these things. You can click on it, and then you'll get an email with the actual downloads or the information or whatever it is that you needed or that you need. And just please check your junk mail and spam folders and things like that as well for the email. If you didn't, just send an email directly to Ida, if that's fine, Ida. I am going to put your email address here on the screen. So there's Ida's email address is ida@accountables.co.za. So that's the accounting and tax practice. Ida's is over there. And then also, if you've got that, then you can also email Sunette at legalsense.co.za. So Sunette with one N and two T's, and at legalsense.co.za. So you can definitely contact them. But as I say, if you want to go one place, put in your details and you'll get everything immediately. You can go to francois.co.za/CV19. All right, so let me get into the questions here, because I think there's a number of questions. So I'm going to try and see the ones we've already answered. I may skip them, but let me just see. So Kevin, hi Kevin, nice to see you again. He's asking, what help for employees is there that don't receive a salary, or will they be able to claim from UIF? So I guess these are people who are maybe casual labor, that kind of thing. Kevin, you can confirm, but that's as far as I've got it. Ida, I don't know, is that a question that you can take?
You have to contribute to UIF, and your employer has to be registered for you to be able to claim UIF. If those parameters are not met, you will not be able to claim a UIF benefit.
Yes, well, which makes sense. You have to pay for the insurance if you want to claim against the insurance. Okay. Kerry, I want to mention this. I'm glad to see Kerry's here. I hope she's still here. Kerry, I want to ask you, because you sent me some documents last night that you actually put together with the different relief measures and things, and they were, I mean, my mind was, I only had a real good look at them this morning, and my mind was blown with what you've put together. So I would really like to get your permission to maybe share this with the people that were in the webinar today as well. I'm more than happy to do that, but I need your permission if you're comfortable for me to do that, as you've sent it to me. Both the letter to small businesses as well as the two schedules that you've put together. I'm quite happy to do that. So if you can let me know if that'll work. But she's just saying for TERS program, they keep referring to the sliding scale, and I knew this was going to come up, of between 38 and 60%. Where can one find the complete sliding scale? But I think you sort of mentioned a little bit about this, but maybe if we can just clarify again that sliding scale for TERS.
So the sliding scale for TERS, Department of UIF yesterday said they would in this week put an automatic calculator up on their website so that you would be able to calculate what an employee would get depending on the sliding scale. But the sliding scale works this way. The minimum amount a person can get is 3,500 Rand, because that is the national minimum wage. And then if you contribute above that, so if you contribute the maximum portion of 148 Rand 72, you will be able to claim between 38% and 60%. So if your benefit, if you're contributing 148 Rand a month, which is maximum, your benefit that you are liable from UIF is, in normal terms, is usually 17,000 Rand, and 38% of that is about 6,700 Rand that you will be able to get. So it's a case by case, employee by employee, sector by sector thing. They have promised if that calculator goes live, I will put it on our website and send it out on an emailing list, just the link for that calculator. But we're all waiting for that calculator to come to life.
Okay, 100%. Thank you. And then Johan Creer has had the same question, because he says you need to communicate to staff. So Johan, that answers your question as well. My friend Russell says, for TERS, what if a business has less than 10 employees? So let's say they've just got 5. Would they still qualify for TERS if they do contribute to UIF?
Yes, they would still qualify for TERS. You would just not receive any rapid response team helping you pulling all the documents and agreements up. But if you have to apply, please use Sunet's legal via Legal Sense to pull up the agreements and all of those documents. Contact us. We'll give you some guidance on how to apply and what all the technical terms are.
Okay. Then Barry asked, does one have to set up a separate bank account if you have less than 10 employees?
Yes, you do have to set up a separate bank account, because you have to show how you have managed the TERS benefit that you have received. It doesn't have to be a brand new bank account. If you have a cash account or a savings pocket or any one of those small little accounts, clean it out. It must be a zero balance so that the money gets paid in there and you can track it from there.
Okay, awesome. Sureta asks, how do they handle domestic workers and gardeners? Is there any relief set in place for them?
So if your domestic worker and your gardener comply to the rules of working X many hours, they're seen as permanent, you have to contribute UIF for them, then you usually pay once a year that small amount contribution for them. Then they can go claim, but you will need to help them, supply them with the letters, supply them with the forms, and give them access to either do it via U-filing, or there are email addresses that you can use. UIF has said they really don't want people at their offices, so we must try and help these employees to the best of our ability in a digital way to submit their claims.
Okay, awesome. Then Aquanet Pool Safety Nets, Covers and Fencing is asking, we are not able to trade as a company, but have committed to paying our wages and salaries. Are we able to recover some of the amount paid out to employees from TERS?
Yes, you are. If you can, you have to then, when you do your first submission for your first payment refund, which I'm going to call it, of the TERS benefit, you will have to prove what you have paid to employees. Then they will refund you what you have paid based on the sliding scale that they are applying. And the only thing is, an employee cannot receive more than 100% of their remuneration. So either UIF will top up for them to receive 100%, but they can't receive from you 100% plus TERS 100%. So you have to be very clear, and there's very clear guidance on how you have to fill in the TERS forms to get that benefit back and ensure that the calculations are correct.
Okay, cool. Then Belinda is asking if an employee on contract and paid UIF on that contract, but the contract ended at the end of March. And if lockdown wasn't put in place, they would have appointed them permanently on the 1st of April, obviously. Can they, for that employee, claim TERS for that person?
That is a very, very, very technical question. I am not sure what the answer is on that, because TERS clearly specifies you have to be a qualifying employee, and you have to prove that they would have, in the normal run of business, received remuneration. So if they are on your April payroll and you had not let them go, you probably would have been able to receive TERS benefit for them. But can I suggest, Belinda, that you email me and then we can chat, we can include Sunette and we can chat about this, and I'll research that question for you a bit and get you a clear-cut answer if maybe we can help this employee at least get some sort of a benefit.
Okay, thank you very much. Then John Greenland. John, I must say I'm very impressed with the Profile Me stuff of yours that was done by Razan. But John is from Loaded App. We have around 40 owner drivers, it says micro businesses, that work on the platform. They are not employees. So this is almost like the Uber and Airbnb kind of model, if you will. So there's an app you can apply to be not a driver, but somebody that would, perform the services that are booked via the app, if I understand it correctly. So therefore, they're not employees. Is there any relief for these micro businesses?
Okay, so the only guidance that we have received and seen so far for micro businesses is they are apparently building this safety net for micro businesses. What the safety net entitles them to, how it works, we have no clue. So John, I also suggest send me an email. As soon as there's some communication or some guidance released regarding micro businesses, we can chat and we can try and help each other out with those employees, with those drivers.
Good stuff. Just want to make sure I updated the information at the bottom of the screen so it's easy to get your information. So if you go back to the questions, Johan Krier, once again, he's asking, how will the tax work on the UIF payments subject to pay as you earn? I think I can answer that, Johan. Yes, definitely. Because as soon as the money is paid as remuneration, because that is what it would be. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure. I mean, you can just confirm whether that income from there, or does that pay like almost like this, sick benefits where there is no tax on that payment. It's net of tax.
So for the TERS relief scheme, it is subject to pay as you earn, but it's not pay as you earn. You as the employer, you do not have to deduct the pay as you earn. It lies in the hand of the employee. The employee, when they submit their personal income tax returns, then have to either pay in or receive back if they've been overtaxed over the full financial year. But it's not the employer's responsibility.
Okay. Then Kevin asks, what about the Rupert and Oppenheimer donation funds? I'm not sure what about it, Kevin, but I mean, just maybe in general, just how it works, because I know they're more structured like business loans, if I've got that right.
Yes, you are right. So the Oppenheimers have a few things in place. There's the Sakuma Relief Program. This program is for sole proprietors and for businesses. There's a lot of criteria that you have to meet, but one of the main criteria that has been the downfall for a lot of people that want to apply is they require that the business should have been trading for 24 months. So a lot of new businesses have just started up and they can't apply for relief from them. Just another thing on Sakuma, yesterday, probably at 12, they closed the fund for submissions because the fund has been oversubscribed. They said that they are working through the cases to see how many of the cases can be resolved and are actual people that can receive relief. And then if there is still some funds left, they will open it for applications again. There is another fund that is the Solidarity Fund. That is from Mary Oppenheimer and her daughters. Some of the other big businesses like Naspers and F&B Spire has also contributed to that. But that is not something that you can apply for. They mainly focus on helping healthcare workers and ensuring that hospitals, clinics in rural areas get funding. So a lot of that funds goes there. And then the last one is the SA Future Trust. So the SA Future Trust you can apply for with your bank, and you have to be an existing client of one of the 4 major banks. That is ABSA, FNB, Nedbank, and Standard Bank. You go to them, you apply via them. There's certain criteria that you have to meet. There's certain supporting documents that you have to, and then they will give you a loan. The loan is basically interest free for the first 5 years, and then you have to only pay back thereafter. Interest fee for the first year, and then only pay back after 5 years. And it's your decision on how you pay it back, in bulk amounts or in a monthly thing. You set it up and negotiate it with the bank when you apply.
Great. Okay. I'm just updating you. I just want to share this as well. So just from my side, Kerry Moss, thank you. She is allowing us to share those documents that I shared with you in the group, about the summaries of the different relief measures that are just at a high level, because I think it's cool. There's obviously more information and things that we will share with you when you download our summary, but there's also another, just sort of give you a high level idea of what is available. So these funds that Kevin has asked about, just what they are, just their basic structure, etc. And then obviously in the documents that we've got available, you will see how to go and apply and do all of that, where you can get more information. And then if you want the packs that will guide you through that whole process and give you all the details, then you can purchase that from us. All right. So thank you, Kerry, from me. Really, I know you quite well, and I really appreciate that you allow us to share this information as well. The more information we can get out there, the better. And we want to make it as easy as possible. So, KM, I'm not sure if it's Khamotso or not, but anyway, so KM asks, so what happens if workman's compensation is not up to date? Will this mean that my UIF TERS claim will be rejected?
No, it's a de-linked fund, so it doesn't look at workman's compensation. Okay, so then Inge, I hope I'm saying your name right. In which way does any of your advice apply to a street vendor who hustles a street corner for a living? It's a very good question. So that is my mother-in-law. Hello, Mom. A street vendor is seen as the informal sector, or if they have a license to be a street vendor, they are seen as a micro enterprise, because usually some of them have people sitting on other street corners and then they take a cut of whatever those people are selling. Again, I say we've just heard of this safety net that is being developed for them. We have no information at this stage. As soon as it becomes available, we'll share what we have, but there's no clarity at this stage. Yesterday at probably 12:15, I shut down my computer, and at that stage, I had not seen or read anything about other than this so-called safety net. Okay, cool beans. Thank you. I guess it's Inga. Is that right? Yeah. So, okay. So Belinda is asking, employee resigns end of Feb, starts new job in March. How does one go about claiming TERS? So is that job with you or with someone else? Because if they've left, I guess you can't claim for that, right? So TERS is not based on how long you have been employed. It is about the loss of your remuneration. So yes, you would be able to apply for them, and it would be scaled on what their monthly remuneration is. Even if they're under probation and they're due to get a bigger salary after probation, it will be on the salary before as on probation, because that is the income that they have potentially lost. They cannot claim
Yes.
for something that is not theirs yet.
Yes. Okay. And it also depends. I mean, that question could go both ways. So it's either they left your employment or they joined you. You know, so it depends on from which angle you're asking the question, Belinda. So Karim is asking, what about group benefits, risk cover, and retirement contributions? That's a very good question. Because now, I mean, and I don't know if there's any clarity on this yet, because I think these are one of the challenges. What happens to your contributions to your pension fund? Because we sit with an issue when it comes to that, is that there's a legal responsibility, one for the employer to obviously deduct those contributions, and secondly, to pay it over to the pension fund within a specific time frame. So what's happening now? But I mean, usually those are not set out in rands. They are a percentage of salary. And that is of a risk salary or a pensionable salary. So it depends on how that is defined. I guess it would influence that. But I mean, you would still have to deduct that, right? You can't stop the contributions, or can you?
I am not clear on what the answer would be. I would suggest to phone whoever the risk cover is with, the retirement is with, see what their relief statements are. Usually in those contracts, there are things that make way for some or other disaster that happens. You will have to communicate with them individually and see what each of one say. And if you are in a sector with where there is a bargaining council or any one of those, you are also welcome to contact them and ask them for guidance. Then there is another website. It's called Cobra. They also they are focusing on SMEs to try and exactly look at risk cover, retirement contributions, see what they can negotiate for enterprises and all of that. So you're more than welcome to go look up Cobra and see if they can maybe assist and give you some guidance and help sort out the group benefits as you've asked.
Okay, yeah, cool. Because I haven't seen anything. I know there's a lot of relief measures from individual policyholder perspective. So where you have your own RA and your own life policy and things like that, there are options available. But I haven't seen anything in terms of retirement funds really being published, as far as I know. But if anybody knows about anything, it'll be cool if you can let us know. It's a couple of people saying thank you. And then Nick Dacker is asking, what about sick leave when illness? And Jeanette, this is maybe one for you. What about sick leave when illness is contracted during lockdown? Usually when one takes normal leave and gets ill, you cannot change to sick leave. So is this a case, I mean, sorry, I just want to ask, is this a case where you're not taking annual leave during lockdown because you can't work and you agreed with your employer and now you get sick? Can you then change it to sick leave so you don't use more of your annual leave? Is that the question, I guess?
I think it is. It will depend on whether the employee during the lockdown period is in a position to work from home or not. If I would say if they are in a position to work from home, then the normal standard rules will apply. As I say to all my clients, that goes for everything. It doesn't only stop at leave and sick leave, it also applies to things like discipline and performance management and all sorts of things. So if an employee is able to work from home as they would have, just remotely, then, and they are sick, the same rules will apply. If they are sick for longer than 2 days, they will have to actually provide you with a medical certificate, etc., etc. If they are on temporary, let me just get my notes out here. Just want to get the right word for it. If they are temporarily laid off, which means that they cannot work from home, so they are sitting at home watching Netflix, and they are ill or they are sick during this lockdown period, I do not think sick leave will apply to them because they're not physically working. But that's just my interpretation. There may be other people with different interpretations, but I would say it depends on whether they are being able to actually still perform their duties or not during this lockdown period.
Okay, but could you technically, sorry if I missed that now, but could you technically change if I am working, okay, and but I'm not working, but I'm taking my annual leave, and I then get sick, can you change in between? Sorry if I missed that. I just want to make
Okay,
100% sure, just
sorry.
simple
Yes, I've
answer.
missed that. I'm sorry. I'm going off on a tangent here, and I forget the actual part of the thing. If you are on forced leave, Jana, I must focus. If you are on forced leave and it's annual leave, and you do get sick, and you can prove it by means of submitting a medical certificate, that portion of the annual leave can be converted back into sick leave. Definitely, it just makes sense to do it that way.
Okay, 100%. Then let me see. Inga is back. She says, will there be a follow-up to the discussion? It's very informative. Thank you, Inga. Yes, there will be. We've actually chatted before we started that we're already thinking about a separate session about something else that will build on this. And also, when there are major updates and new news, we will definitely have an update session to inform everybody about that. So yeah, cool stuff. Then Jeanette is saying, we are an essential provider, but have not sufficient work for all. So they don't have sufficient work for all their staff. Can we get assistance for the workers not working? So does that mean that, maybe you can support some of them, but some of them you can't because they're not working? Can you have like a sort of a deal of a part claim?
You can have a part claim. TERS speaks about qualifying employees. So qualifying employees would be those employees that you do not have sufficient work for, that you've shut down that side of the department. For instance, earlier in our discussion, we were talking about the admin ladies can all sit at home, work from their laptops, but the guys in the stores, driving around, whatever, you can still apply for them.
Okay, great stuff. That answers that question. Then another question, and I want to combine something here with Bongi's question, because Bongi is asking if a company overlooked having to register for UIF, and that happens a lot where you're the only person in the business, you pay yourself a salary, but then you never think about like going to also register yourself for UIF. So, can you get registered now and backdated? So obviously then put in all your returns that was supposed to go in, pay your penalties, pay the amounts that are outstanding, and then put in a claim. One, so could you do that? And then secondly, I want to ask, what about someone it's a business, it's a company registered for pay as you earn, registered for UIF, but you're the only person in that business and you're drawing a physical salary from that business. Are you also able to claim?
So two-folded question. Question one, the registration for UIF, if you have not registered and you've overlooked it, you have to contact one of the, so how UIF works, it's within a region. So you have to contact the region manager and you have to see if that region manager can speed up your UIF registration. And then based on what you have discussed with that regional manager, they would give you clear guidance on, yes, you will be able to backdate because you would have had to register 2 or 3 months ago, or no, you actually don't comply to have to be registered, and then you will not be able to comply. So it's also looked at on a case-by-case basis, and you have to give, I know they spoke on the UIF forum, they spoke about you have to give affidavits and letters of proof and when people were employed and reasons why you were not registered at time and why you are not compliant. So it's a very, very big process, administrative hungry process, but you have to get in contact with that region's manager and try and see if you can sort out your UIF registration if you want to backdate your claim.
Okay, awesome. All right, it seems like I've gone through all the questions. I just want to say there's so many comments here about thank you, great session. We really enjoyed it, very valuable. Thank you, thank you. I just want to show this comment. I love this elbow bump from Divya. That's brilliant. Elbow bump there to you too. Guys, thank you very much. We try to keep this as short as possible, but always the questions takes a long time. And I think there's a lot of value answering these questions and rather answering them properly than trying to rush through them or ignore them completely. So from that point of view, I think we're done. I just want to say thank you very, very much for everybody that's been here. I really, really appreciate it. And from myself, thank you very much. I'll give each of Ida and Sunette a chance to say goodbye as well. Please, at the bottom of the screen is where you can get hold of us and get more information. You're welcome to make use of that. And just one thing I want to clarify is that we don't help you with the actual application process, but we give you all the tools and all the things, the forms, the requirements, everything that you need to apply for that. And then when there are manual forms, there's also explanation of what is needed and what needs to go where. So from that point of view, it'll make it a lot easier for you. You don't have to go and search for things all over the place. So thank you very much. Ida, if you want to say something as a last resort.
I just want to say thank you for everybody that attended. I hope we helped and we gave you some guidance and we gave you some place to go to look for answers. If you need anything else or if there are more specific questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are all in this together. We might not have all the answers right now because it's a day-by-day situation. We're looking for guidance. We're asking questions. We're getting guidance not only from government, but from our governing bodies that are pressuring government for answers. So good luck. Wish you all the best, and I hope all of your businesses survive.
Awesome. Sunette?
Again, thank you very much for everybody who tuned in today, and I hope we could have helped just a little bit. I think everybody's, in this, and you don't really know where to go, where to turn. So if we could have made a small difference today and how you see things and how you think about how to manage your business going forward, then we've done our little bit. We make it our life's mission at the moment to gather as much as information and to keep all our clients and everybody out there informed and provide as much guidance as we can, because that's our passion. You guys are the lifeblood of this economy, and we're there for you. So contact us, please, on the contact information at the bottom. Legal Sense will be giving free time to assist you with whatever questions you have. So please don't be shy. That's what we're there for.
Awesomeness. And this session has been recorded, so it will be available if you want to refer back to anything as well. So on that, we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.